So when people ask this question, you have to think about what is it that I have not managed to do this life, so to speak, which I really, really want to do, but something that just not possible for all sorts of reasons. What lacked? What is it that I really wish I could do, but cannot do? And that's becoming classical Indian musician. Yeah. And yes, also Karnataka singer is in this life not possible. I can see, I can feel. No time, just no discipline. So this and all this, I'm considering this is a good cause and condition that in my next life I will actually be born, and within few hours I will be singing Karnataka song and hearing sitar and tabla, etc. So shall I take it out now? So since the title of our gathering here is something to do with the Vipassana, and since words like meditation, mindfulness, and Vipassana is kind of a trend these days, I'm sure some of you, especially those who have not been to this kind of gathering, may have certain expectations or some sort of assumption what it is about. To sort of, and of course, we only have this morning. So to really essentialize and give you a complete picture of Vipassana is therefore difficult. It's impossible, because Vipassana is really, really vast. But hopefully this morning we can discuss and give you a different angle and different sort of, maybe demystify a little bit about phenomena such as meditation, mindfulness, and Vipassana, at least within the Buddhist context. You know, as we were walking in earlier, there was this beautiful chant. She was chanting refuge, taking refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Now that is very much a Vipassana, actually. There is no reason why it is not a Vipassana. And similarly, chanting mantras such as Tatyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasam Gati Buddhi Swaha, or very, very popularly known mantra such as Om Mani Padme Hum, or even a very simple chant of Om, that can be very much Vipassana. But I know most of the people have a different idea about Vipassana, which we should do it right now for about a minute or two, which I think most of you must be assuming or have some sort of idea of what Vipassana is. So let's first do that. Let's all sit straight, comfortably. And be aware, be mindful, be conscious of your surroundings, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotion. And simply that, just be conscious, just be aware of what's happening this very moment. Be it something very exotic, sacred, or be it ordinary, mundane, or it can be very disturbing, strong clashes or emotions. Whatever it is, just being aware of this. Okay, so this, what we just did, more likely is what you were expecting when we were talking about Vipassana. And this, what we just did, is sort of qualified as a meditation, as a Vipassana. The girl who was singing The Refuge, that's religious. You understand? That's cultural thing. Cultish. It's the Indian sort of habit. Or chanting mantras. So categorized as a religious act, religious sort of discipline. I think this has a lot to do with Buddhism now going outside of India. It's kind of interesting that when Buddhism was brought to places like China and Japan, somehow the Chinese and Japanese, they really, they were quite comfortable with things like lotus, things like, Anjalika Mudra. It's not, I don't think it's a very Japanese thing, you understand? Not also a Chinese thing. I'm sure they had something much a different way of expressing their devotion, whatever. But this was later imported from India, and somehow the Chinese were quite comfortable with this. I'm sure there were also, critiques, disputes, of course. With the Tibetans look up to Indians, sometimes quite over the top. Land of the Aryas, anything that comes from India, especially anything to do with the spiritual path, they think it's like perfection. Now, as Buddhism is going outside of India, or maybe traditional place, especially towards the West. So now there's a challenge. So anything to do with like mudras, flowers, incense, statues, singing, like chants, chanting mantras, very uncomfortable by the hosting sort of the new host, so to speak. Whereas that's okay. It doesn't sound very religious. This is kind of harmless. I think it's very similar to yoga also. Of course, yoga, that has some other material benefits such as, slimming and, vanity, etc., etc. But anyway, this sitting is sort of accepted in the modern world, Western world, modern world. And when I say Western world, we have to, I'm not talking about West just because Indians and the Chinese, you have so much of that Western mind, so-called Western mind, globalized mind, modern mind, so much. I see more Chinese and Indians who are embarrassed about hymns, chants, mantras, especially the modern Indians, modern Chinese. But this is, I don't know, now people are even going to the extent of saying that scientifically mindfulness is proven to be a healthy thing. But I don't know, there's been a dispute over that too. But if you look at the way or the philosophy or the philosophy behind the Vipassana, chanting mantra, chanting prayers, that is as ritual as this. This is a ritual, actually. Sitting straight is a ritual. It just happened to be less threatening for some of modern mind. It just happened to be something that you don't mind. I mean, something that your non-Buddhist or non-Hindu boyfriend or girlfriend mind. It just happened to be that. Anything to do with that flower, mantras, you want to hide it because it's too religious. But if you, as I was saying, if you look deeper into the philosophy of Vipassana, this is just a ritual. Nothing else. And this, by the way, sitting straight can be a trap. Just as mantras, rituals, flowers, incense, all that can be a trap. And equally, just as how sitting straight and quiet for hours and hours can be helpful for you to look inward and develop the mindfulness. For many others, chanting, praying, Zen garden, tea ceremony, all these rituals can be in very awakening, so on and so forth. Now, why is it like that? Why is it, why is it? Sort of the reason, the logic behind. Okay. The word Vipassana is quite important, something that we need to decipher these words. The word Vipa, although I'm not a Sanskrit scholar or a Pali, the word Vi has the connotation of special, word Vi. And Pasana, the word Pasana means seeing, which I think the Tibetan ancient translators did a very good job in translating this as a Lakton, special, extra. The real thing, true color, so to speak. So the whole point of the Vipassana is really to see the real thing. That's, maybe even the word special is kind of deceiving because it sort of implies that there is a mystical, special reality that we don't see. So anyway, for now, the true color or the true sort of insight. So with this in mind, now you can contemplate on words like mindfulness. Why would Buddhists want to end their life being mindful? Can you think about it? Because mindful has this connotation of being careful. Why would you want to be careful all your life? That is so depressing. Why would you want to be sort of on the edge all the time, being careful? So the mindfulness word is not a good word. It's a really, it has a lot of stress. What is it that the Buddhists are really trying to achieve? Is the insight, the true color. Want to meet the real, what do you call it? Real McCoy? Real McCoy? That's what we wanted to do. Sitting hours and hours. And this, by the way, permeates in every level. Just now, before I came here, somebody on the way stopped me and asked, what should I do as a daily practice? Implying that there is a certain time, like a morning, and some sort of a discipline to apply, like a mantra or a ritual, or a posture such as sitting, and doing that. It's a bit like, I think the Christians, as a Christian, you go to church every Sunday, or something like this. So as a Buddhist, you sit in the morning for half an hour. Sort of the homework. So, daily practice. Now, I'm not really denouncing or discouraging daily practice. I just want to think what we mean by daily practice. It's not a ritual. It's not like 5 times of prayers within 24 hours. Daily or weekly or monthly or yearly, it doesn't matter, or even after every 12 years. What you are supposed to do is Vipassana, meaning get acquainted with a real McCoy. Get to see the truth. That is the whole purpose of the Vipassana, isn't it? So if that can be done without sitting, and actually if that can be done better by walking around, dancing, cooking, as long as it is bringing you to the real thing, the truth. It's a Vipassana. Similarly, why would a Buddhist wants to end their life meditating? That sounds it sounds really such a big burden. I have to meditate. Because the word meditation, it has to do with it, like getting used to it, isn't it? Why would you want to get used to something? It just sounds really, there's a burden involved in this. Okay, so but of course, here I have to remind you that technique, such as sitting straight, is very much encouraged because, among many other reasons, it's the most simple, it's user-friendly, so to speak, and it's economical, and it's for the modern people, it's it doesn't have the religious look. So it's something that you can share it with people who wants to do something, wants to calm their mind or wants to see the truth, but they are not so comfortable with anything to do with the religious. So I'm not discouraging, but I think we need to see the Vipassana in a much deeper and in a much vast sense. In fact, in the Buddhist sutras and the shastras, traditionally, before the Vipassana is taught, there's another technique called shamatha. And again here, the shamatha is really nothing to do with actually just sitting. It's to really make your mind malleable. That's the whole point of the shamatha. Make your mind workable, malleable. When your mind does what you want the mind to do, you have reached shamatha. And for a lot of people, this can be achieved through just watching the breathing. So you can even look at the technique itself. It's a trick. A meditation instructor will say, okay, sit straight, watch your breathing in and out. Every time your mind goes out, you bring the mind back to breathing. This is a trick. It's a necessary trick, and it's a wonderful trick. It's a profound trick that has been used for centuries. What it does is, when the meditator or practitioner try to apply this method, the moment you concentrate on the breathing, the first thing you realize is you can't. And that frustration of not being able to be on that object, again and again, you go through these frustrations again and again. And especially if you're a dedicated practitioner, you actually invest on this frustration. So after about a few, depending on what kind of faculties you have, for a lot of people, after a few months, the moment the distraction comes, the frustrations arrive. And that, you see, the moment you are distracted, you are frustrated. The beginning of the birth of the Vipassana. Because, that's, it's like the moment you see the fire, you know it can burn. You understand? That's the real thing, the real truth. Heat will burn you. The moment you see the fire, you know it can burn you. So anyway, this shamatha, there is a technique called shamatha, which is very much encouraged in order to make your mind malleable, workable. And once you have achieved a little bit of a strength in making your mind malleable, and that is, by the way, you should not think that suddenly, you should not think this is something unachievable. Like I think many times practitioners end up thinking that making mind malleable somehow makes you calm. Now, this is something that you need to, again, make a note. To be calm is really not the aim of Buddhists. Why would we want to end our life being calm? There's many, many other ways to do it. That's kind of easy to do. Just quit your job. Or go somewhere. That's easy to do. To be calm. It's not what we are looking for. So, how do we know that my mind is becoming malleable? After a day or two of shamatha meditation, if you realize you cannot concentrate, it's the beginning of making your mind workable. Of course, in the beginning, it exudes a lot of frustration, of course, because expectations and assumptions and the goal, it's like, I think, we have the understanding of the goal, sort of a misunderstanding of the goal, so to speak. Every time you are frustrated because you cannot concentrate, a big job is done. All we need to do is more of that, more of that. And then we apply the Vipassana. And the Vipassana is to see the truth. Okay, so what truth are we talking about here? As I said earlier, the word V, many times translated as special, which I have to be careful here, because special, the word special seems to have the connotation of something exotic, something beyond this mundane world, which is not true. We are talking something very, very ordinary truth. So ordinary, ridiculously ordinary, ridiculously, mundane, ridiculously simple. And in the classic sort of Buddhist, what we call marks of three existence is anicca, anattā, and duḥkha. So I'm going to use, in the past I've been using more the translated version, but I like to emphasize using the classic word. So, anicca, impermanence, I think it's translated as impermanence. I think probably this would be okay. Impermanence. That is one of the truths that we just have to be aware. In Vipassana, insight, awareness, seeing the truth. The fact that everything is impermanent. Now, this one got derailed a lot. This very teaching on impermanence, I feel. For one thing, somehow the general sort of people's image or the view of Buddhism is this group of religion who talks all sorts of pessimistic stuff like impermanence and death. I think we got derailed there. Impermanence can be both good news and bad news. See, if you are saying, let's say you just order a dosa, or a chai, and as you are eating, if you can accept that this may be your last dosa, which is possible, isn't it? Or when you say goodbye to someone, or see you tomorrow to someone, if you tell yourself, this may be not, I may not see her or him tomorrow. This may be the last. This awareness is a Vipassana, I'm telling you. At that time, you are seeing the truth, or you are living with the truth. But at the same time, it's not always like this. It's like, let's say you are having a tough time, emotionally, mentally, physically, and you have so much problems in your life. But how many times you have had problems. And most of these problems, the problems that we had 10 years ago, it's not that big deal anymore. Some of the problems that we put so much emphasis or so much our sweat and blood, if you recall, is so ridiculous. Now we have a new problem that we are entangled with. So, again here, Vipassana is, if you are having a problem right now, really learning to have this attitude, this may go tomorrow, or not, maybe next week, or next month. This is a Vipassana. And what I'm trying to tell you is that really, a lot of the times people think Vipassana is something to do with a sitting on a cushion for 9 days, without talking, without, like moving, which is one of, it is one way. But the real thing, to have that constant knowledge, awareness, and attitude towards your life, everything is changing all the time. I'm a good friend with this man. Who knows? By next year, we will be like strangling each other. You understand? Who knows? I'm a Buddhist today. I'm very, I'm like fanatical about Buddhism. Who knows? Maybe by next year, I'll be crying in front of a church. We never know. What I'm thinking, it has happened to me. It has happened to me all the time. Things that I value, it's changed. And by the way, this knowledge, this awareness, you have not only talk, you not only read about it and get convinced, that's true, everything is changing, everything is impermanent. Not only reading about it, not only intellectualizing it, but actually living with it. That is a Vipassana. And I think this is something that, especially for those who are Buddhist here, you should also tell your children. It's a good education for them. Because it's a really an education of expectations and assumptions. So, yeah, you can do this, but you never know. If a Buddhist couple is getting married, at the end of the ceremony, you may get divorced by tonight. That's a Vipassana marriage. Vipassana marriage. It's really talking about the real thing. So living with this, everything, taste of music, taste of fashion, food, choice of gurus. Be like this guru right now. Who knows? By next year we will be like thinking this cult figure, so on and so forth. It's like this, like a wave. It changes all the time, constantly, everything. So this is one of the three marks. Very simple. Well, is there anything religious about it? None. But in order to achieve that, you could do sitting. That could help. You could also chant. There's a lot of chant, a lot of mantras. And yeah. Prayers. And for someone like me, actually, I personally prefer prayers. I really pray that I understand and live with a aniccā, impermanence. And it makes your life also kind of more, it really cuts lots of blind expectations, blind assumptions that everything will be But as simple as this sounds, not that easy, because there is all this force out there that want you to think the opposite of anicca. The birthday parties, I don't know, may you live long, moisturizers, vitamins, health centers, well-being stuff, Botox, what is it? Plastic surgery, all kinds of things out there. All things that is really trying to sort of make you go away from anicca, go, distract you from the. Hello. That distract you from impermanence so much. Everything, basically everything. Shopping, online shopping, just everything. What can you think about? Like guarantee, insurance, family planning, migration, package tour. Oh, wow. All kinds of things. They all are ready there to distract you from the, this awareness that things change. And, again, as I said this, it sounds very negative, probably for your ears, but actually, I don't mean to be negative. It's really, some of you don't have Ferraris, and some of you don't have partner. Some of you, I don't know, some of you don't have jobs. Thanks to anicca, you may end up having 2 Ferraris. Thanks to anicca, because you may end up having too many dates. You don't know what to do with this. You understand? You may want to sort of, I don't know, which one to choose from. So much. So, thanks to anicca, you actually, finally, after 20 years, somebody actually is interested in you, and you are also interested in him or her. At that time, think about anicca. That could go. That's all we are asking here. This is how non-religious, this is all we are asking. This is all awareness you need. That's Vipassana. Can that be done with, doing 9 days of sitting somewhere in a, retreat center? If so, do it. If most likely, people who go to 9 days Vipassana sitting, most likely they're going there to be calm. See, the quest and desire to be calm sounds like they don't want anicca. You understand? Calm, strong, healthy. Yeah. Yes, so I was saying about, quest and longing to be calm and to be free from stress. Somehow, you have to be careful here, because there's a little bit of going away from anicca. I think basically that's it. Just that truth you have to not only intellectually aware of, but live with it. Remember the days of George Bush? how we really demonize. Now he's almost like a heavenly being. That's going to happen after 10 years with certain people. Our ideas of the people are going to change. That's how it is. That's all we are talking when we are talking about Vipassana. Why? Okay, so that, when you see that and when you live with that, you are liberated from delusion of thinking that things has to be a certain way, things has to be only this way, forever, so on and so forth. And freedom from that delusion is what we call nirvana, moksha. That's all. Okay, the next one. The next truth, or the next point of the Vipassana. Duḥkha, which is basically, I think that probably this is the best translation. Unsatisfactoriness is probably the best. The Sanskrit or the Pali word duḥkha. We are never going to be satisfied. If we are going to be satisfied from the mundane world point of view, life will be very boring, isn't it? Because we are satisfied. Just imagine we are satisfied, like period. Then what? This is how complicated we human beings are. We as much as the very unsatisfactoriness is really tearing you apart, the very unsatisfactoriness is also what you are striving for, thriving with, working for. It's so nice to have the thing called upgrading your software. Things like, maybe the next, model is coming now, soon. Next, improvement, progress, advancement, change. Discover. Just think about everything what we use. Adventure. Yeah, I think the discovery is a big one. And all of this has unsatisfactoriness. This is full of that, completely. We are just never satisfied. And that's called life. And we are not making a judgment here, by the way. We are not making some sort of a religious judgment that this is, being unsatisfied is sinful, or you should therefore, be satisfied. Nothing. Vipassana has got nothing to do with, sort of a moral judgment. It is something to do with the truth. The truth of the matter is, what we have, we are never satisfied. Sometimes, in the mundane world, when the unsatisfactoriness becoming too much, it's called pain, I guess. And when it is handleable, it's called excitement. When the unsatisfactoriness is something that you can handle, it's really exciting. You open one book like leadership training. It's all from page 1 to the last page. It's all about list of unsatisfactoriness. Otherwise, why would you want to become a leader? Why leadership? Why The moment you want to become a leader, you are seeing a problem, isn't it? Therefore, you want to lead yourself or somebody else. So you are not satisfied. That's all we are saying. We are not satisfied with, I don't know, quality of this sound, maybe, or quality of my voice. I don't know. We are not satisfied. Just all kinds of things. Not satisfied. That's all you need to know. And if you know this, if you're aware of this, you can extract a lot of liberation. And together with the anicca, it's actually even more interesting. Together with the impermanence, it can really become really interesting. Down the line, in about 20 years' time, we could think about this very event we are having right now. Even the noise of the car is very romantic. Of course, the trees, just before I was thinking, this is how the great Indian thinkers and the wisdom masters, this is how they talked to their people in the past, under the tree, like this, not like in some strange laboratory or classrooms, That's like this. Everything. So if you can see the unsatisfactoriness aspect of our life, it can be very liberating. Really good for those who are addicted to shopping, actually. You are never going to be satisfied with whatever you are buying, you understand? You have to just go with that motivation or that awareness. Could be really liberating. That's duḥkha. Okay. Then the third one, and the last one, and probably the most important one, is anattā, which is translated as non-self. This probably needs a bit of a, thinking and contemplation and analyzing. When we talk about non-self, the Buddhists are not talking that it does not exist. Buddhists are talking about that it has no inherently existing self. I think the classic example is something like this, or something like this. This, there's a legs here, there's a plank, and then, there's this mat, and I'm sitting on it. That's a big one. All that put together, somehow there's a phenomena called bench or a chair. But individually, if you decipher and separate individually, there is no self called chair or bench. For instance, before I walk into this place this morning, if there are some food on this, or flowers, food and drink, this very phenomena in your mind will be table. What a beautiful table. See, it just proves that it's very changeable. interchangeable, everything. Fundamentally, it's this simple, actually. Even though phenomena appears or die, arise, exhaust, dwell, come, go, function, not function, whatever manifestation is occurring, none of it has a truly existing self. And especially in Buddhism, since Vipassana, I should say Vipassana is exclusive Buddhist thing. And I need to say this as I need to highlight this because, I don't know, maybe in 20 years' time, the Vipassana will become like a, Zen. Zen is still surviving, but I always say this, like wabi-sabi in Japan. The wabi-sabi is a really, really profound Buddhist teaching I have gathered. I've done some reading on this. But the Japanese themselves have forgotten that it is something to do with the Buddhist wisdom. So it's now becoming some sort of a very dying Japanese, sort of a romantic, saying or whatever. But actually it's a very, very profound Buddhist. Actually, earlier I was talking about anicca and duḥkha. Wabi-sabi explains this so well. Imagine the cherry blossom season in Japan. Why the whole world loves cherry blossom? Because it only lasts 10 days. If the Japanese cherry blossom goes on forever, nobody's even going to look at it. It will be so annoying, all these flowers. But because it comes only like 10 days a year and it sort of drops, it makes everybody, it's beautiful. That temporariness is beautiful. Like that. And I think one of the connotation of the word sabi, I think it's the sabi, it's basically imperfection is beautiful. That, perfect. Like broken glass or, broken chair. Or, I don't know, which India has a lot. I'm not being, sarcastic. But if you look at it, which can be really, and Indians, I have to say, it may have come from the ancient wisdom influence. They do live with this. Life has so many temporariness, and life has so many imperfections, and that can become very beautiful if you know how to package it well, and if you know how to see from different angles. So Vipassana, coming back to Vipassana. Vipassana is exclusive Buddhist path. And especially when we talk about the anattā, when we talk about self-less or non-self, Buddhists would spend more time rather than talking about the no-self of a table or a chair, which I did earlier, because the table and chair at the end of the day is not the biggest deal. You understand? Like, I'm sitting here, that's why it's a chair. But if some vegetables or food is here, it's a table, and you will not really go crazy about that. It doesn't matter. It can be table, it can be chair, whatever. But there's another self that becomes a big matter, which is the self of a person, human being, me, I, you, the Indian, Chinese, German, whatever, this self. Now that creates some problems. And that also, if you analyze, yourself, myself, it's just a label. It's a label given to congregation or a gathering of few transitory collections called body, feeling, names, gender, culture, and then of course like karmic consciousness, action, very important one. When all these are together, then a label called myself, you, they, he, she appears. Other than that, there is no truly existing entity or a substance that can be pinpointed and sort of keep it or worship or punish or reward as self. This, again, as long as, now this probably is the most difficult one, because, going back, remember how much difficulty we have in getting used to aniccā, impermanence, changing world, because the whole world is telling you you will live forever. You look young. I don't know, all these things just to distract you from aniccā. And then even more challenging is to see everything as an unsatisfactoriness, because there's all this illusion that, I'll finish my school, then I'll go to university, I'll then, get a graduation, get a degree, and then I'll get a job, then I'll, do this and that, get promotion, a lot of this unsatisfactoriness, but there's this illusion of satisfactoriness. You understand this? But big one, unsatisfactoriness. But there's this continuous garland of satisfactoriness, small ones. So those basically rob you from the view that actually there's underneath unsatisfactoriness in everything. Now, those two are already difficult, already challenging, but even more challenging is to make you realize that so-called this self that I have actually is just a label. Now that's a difficult one. If somebody steps on you, you can pinch. Oh no, I'm here. If somebody pinch on you, if somebody steps on your toes, if somebody goes against your values, your reference, if somebody, all kinds of things. If you are, and they are all kind of very, very narrow and, they're very narrow and lopsided, and I was just giving example. For instance, there are people who would go all the way fighting for rights of dogs, for instance, dog lover, like people who are writing for, and not all the animal, okay, just the dogs. They will not even think twice before they use mosquito repellent. Nobody speaks for mosquitoes. Stuff like this. It's always something to do, something your own preference. Just because the dogs, we like dogs. Like I like dogs. I have many dogs. And somehow we have come to a conclusion that when they move their tail, it means they like you. We never know, actually. But that's how we have come to a conclusion. Stuff like this. So when there is, so if somebody is going against that kind of value, like vegetarian, non-vegetarian, so many Mahayana, Sharvakayana, Vajrayana, Hindu, Muslims, Christians, all sorts of labels, and with that, all sorts of, marks, descriptions. And those things really makes you forget the selflessness. It actually solidifies the self. So that's going to be difficult. This is why Vipassana ends up becoming really vast and profound. So, okay, for instance, so now coming to a little bit more on the traditional approach, if you look at the Vipassana technique, in order to really enhance the awareness of this truth, you could go to places like Sri Lanka or Burma, and your master might give you a skull, and you put the skull in front of you, or a human bone, and then just train your mind and make you aware that one day you will become this, like this, bone, ashes, skull, skeleton, and that's one method. And the technique of looking at the form, feeling, mind, just look and look. The moment judgment or fabricated or discursive thought comes, you go back to simply looking at watching or looking or being aware of thoughts, feelings, descriptions. You then slowly shrug off all the reference, and then it gets really, a practitioner becomes so skilled in this, you then taste the selflessness. So you kind of, you feel very amused by your name. You get so amused by calling yourself a certain, thinking that you have a certain gender, thinking that you are a man, or that you're a woman, or that you're an Indian, or a Chinese, or you get so amused. Because basically you are looking at congregation or gathering of blood, vein, skin, just atoms. That's it, nothing else. And yet you have all this strong label, so on and so forth. There is that kind of technique. Now if you go to Tantric, like a Vajrayana Buddhism coming from the Tibetan tradition, they have some other methods. They use this method, but they also make it, okay, for the men, they say, okay, you visualize yourself as a woman. Completely pulling the rug out of their feet. If they are men, visualize yourself as a woman. Or think that you have a cow head. Think that you have 6 arms. Think that you have 1,000 eyes. All this to really destroy this stubborn, concrete fort of notion of self. That's how I mean, that's the technique, and this is why, and basically, I should say, whole Buddhist path, one way or another, is a path of Vipassana. So with this, we now should come to a conclusion that as long as somehow you can get used to the anattā, anicca, and duḥkha, you are doing Vipassana. It doesn't matter how you do it. And this is very possible. This is possible through reading books. This is possible through discussions like this. And this is possible through, of course, the traditional methods of like sitting. Okay, coming back to like a daily discipline. Where does this come from? It's really nothing to do with a daily. It's not really like a daily. Daily is, I don't know where that comes from, but actually the concept of the daily practice is based on this idea that since you are more likely, you will be more likely get distracted from this truth. Why not get used to this truth and do it consistently many times? I think that's the fundamental thing. To be consistent, to do it again and again, not necessarily daily. If needed, every minute, every moment. If not, every 12 years once. That will also do. This daily thing, you have to know. If the daily thing what you are doing is daily sitting, daily whatever, if that's not bringing you to anicca, anattā, and duḥkha, if that's not bringing you the awareness to this, it's just a ritual. With this, if anything brings you closer to this, such as, I don't know, you could be reading something like Gabriela Garcia Marquez, 1,000 Years of Solitude. You could be reading this, and if that book brings you closer to this tree, it's a Vipassana, 1,000 Years of Solitude. 1,000 or 100 years? 100 years, right? 100 Years of Solitude. It's a Vipassana of that. It can. Or you could watch a movie. If that movie is bringing you closer to these three marks of existence, we call it. It's a Vipassana. Now, you may think I'm being very radical, but I'm really not. This is completely based on the actual philosophy of Vipassana. I think you may think it's a radical because I'm not emphasizing on sitting in. By all means, as you have heard many times, I'm not discouraging sitting and all of that. I just want you to know that if the sitting is not helping, if the sitting is only making you mindful, if being mindful is your goal, it's not necessarily Vipassana. Being mindful is, as I said, being careful. If being careful is not taking you to the awareness of these three truths, you are just a very careful person. Yes, you are paranoid. Probably you will survive. I heard that paranoid usually survives. Yeah, maybe you'll survive in your environment. And that's not what we are looking. I mean, that's not what Buddhists are supposedly. They're not looking for that. They're looking for something else. Are we having a break? Yeah? Okay. I think we have 10 minutes. If you are talking about anattā, if you really think about anattā, and you still insist on samadhi, meditation, it's a contradiction. There's nobody, there's no truly existing meditation. There is no truly existing meditator. This is this anattā, the selflessness, is sort of the, how should I say, if without this anattā, just the anicca and duḥkha alone supposedly is not a complete vipassana. But having said this, anicca and duḥkha, awareness of these two, if you have a really, thorough understanding of anicca and the duḥkha, it's designed to lead you to the anattā. It's a bit like this. You don't want to talk to somebody who comes right in front of you. You don't want to tell them, you do not exist as yourself. Because, the person will go crazy. What is he talking about? I'm here. I think best to talk about anicca. Things change. That's sort of easy to buy for the people. Sort of. Even though I have told you many times, there's a lot of obstacles for that. So first thing, anicca, get used to anicca. You should be, if you invest a little bit of time, you should be able to be convinced with the anicca, the truth of anicca. Then bring the, duḥkha. That's much more tough, because we all want to have fun, isn't it? So, if you really want to have fun, you should be really being aware of, duḥkha. If you really know about duḥkha, wow, you are this cool person. And you are calm, cool, measured, not fidgety, not at all. You have not lost your composure, because you know duḥkha and also, the impermanence. So then, of course, everything is fun. Somebody cries in front of you, somebody laughs behind you. What a show. It's like, and then, of course, the compassion, which maybe, since it's a much bigger subject, we will cover it after the break. But by the way, really, I must tell you this. I'm not denouncing or discouraging you the traditional Vipassana method. By all means, please do this 9 days Vipassana. I think it's good. I think it really actually as I was saying earlier, it makes you frustrated. That's good. And it will make you really bored, which is good. It's really important. Boredom, loneliness, these are like the dawn of wisdom. You need to really get bored. We are not bored enough. Boredom is also, like, you want to be creative. We are doing this in the center of creativity. You need to be bored. We are not bored enough. Yes. You need to be bored and you need to really feel lonely. Then when you will feel a little bit naked. Yeah, so for that, at the least. But, depending on understanding of the grade of understanding of your Vipassana, 9 days of Vipassana, of course, even 9 hours of Vipassana, 9 minutes of Vipassana, if you do it with, proper understanding of these 3 marks of our existence, very helpful. I just want to sort of, I think it's a shame to just do the Vipassana on the cushion, designated time and place, and then rest of the time, which is the much bigger portion of the time, you don't do anything. That's like sharpening your knife and then putting it back in the drawer without cutting anything. It's a waste. You can apply this 3 in every level. Example is infinite. I made a lot of notes, but I think now. You can apply this like even this is why the Buddhists emphasize on breathing also. The breathing in and out. It's amazing that we breathe out and then we breathe in. Wow, that's a cause of celebration. Wow, I breathed in. This way of thinking. I think the best example I always give is like when you watch movie, television episodes. Like a Game of Thrones. You watch that today, and then you eagerly wait for the next one, isn't it? And then things happens in the story. Bad things happen, good things happen, things that unexpected things happens, and expected things happens, love, all kinds of things. And there's also a time, people get, it's like you can watch a movie basically of somebody's life within 2 hours, and somehow we never really complain. How come, somebody got old within like 2 hours or something? You understand? So there is, so when all this is happening, and especially when you are waiting eagerly for the next episode, nevertheless, there is underneath acceptance that all this does not really exist. Yet you still watch, cry, get angry, I don't know, get emotionally. Well, this is the whole thing about, I'm sure there are a lot of people who know this, like writers, film writers, that's their job. They will create a character so that you can sort of associate, you can identify, and you can root for, so to speak. And many times we also root for Not only good people, but we feel really sympathetic. For instance, what's the Joker? Joker, that bad man, like that Joker. But we feel really sympathetic. We feel so sorry for him, for the mistreatment that he has received. All of this. But underneath, it's just a movie. And this is why when your bladder is full, you have a confidence to just go out. Because it's not really happening. Or also, you can just rewind and play back again. You understand? So there is a little bit of anattā there. It's there, but it's also not there. I think this is something that you need to really habitually get used to. So the Buddhists are saying that everything what we experience is just like that, nothing more, nothing less. The classic examples are like a reflection of the moon in the water, reflection of your face in the mirror, mirage for somebody who is thirsty in the desert, oasis, you see, and then you get hopeful and you run. If you are not savvy, if you are not clever, you run towards the water, you get disappointed. If you are savvy, if you are clever, if you are experienced in the desert traveling, when you see the mirage, when you see the oasis as an illusion, it's an illusion. You enjoy or not enjoy, ignore or not ignore, but it's there, but it's also not there. So when we talk about anattā, we are talking about this. Now this of course gets complicated, and this question is good, because there is also Buddhist concepts such as karma, such as reincarnation. You see, this is the thing. This is why I give you the example of movie. Even in the movie, it somehow makes sense. Somebody gets born, grow up, whole life within 2 hours. Makes sense. You never really question. Or maybe better example is a dream. In the dream, you walk from here to there. You go from here to Pune, and you even arrive there. You understand? Or in the dream, you have quantities, such as, I don't know, you can dream like perfect quantities, qualities, distance. It all works within the dream, but it doesn't matter. They all do not truly exist. What I'm trying to say is, just because something actually is orderly and making sense, this is how the Buddhists think. Just because it is making sense and orderly, it is orderly, does not make that real. Every day you go to the mirror, you see your face. Keep on seeing it. 100 times you go there, your face is there. That does not mean that one day that face will become real. Because if that becomes real, you have a trouble, you have a problem. Because then you have to build another house, I don't know, everything double. Yeah, just if there is a chaos, let's say one day you go to the mirror and there's an ape, or a bear, or a peacock. Now you have a problem. Now then, oh. But illusion, I think we forget. Illusion has order, it has its logic. Just because it has an order, logic, and it makes sense within that context, does not mean that it truly exists. So with this in mind, you should think the Buddhist idea of karma, karma, reincarnation. So within this context, Buddhists also say things like, if you do something bad, let's say if you act something based on your aggression, it will end up giving you the result of pain, suffering, so on and so forth. So, yes, and also, okay, reincarnation. Again, we need to know this. When we talk about anattā, Buddhists never have said in all the sutras and the shastras, there is a truly existing self that gets reincarnated. There, never. So reincarnation, karma, all this exists within the world of illusion, the world of dream. The moment you wake up from the dream, you never started from here and arrived here. You are just peacefully or not peacefully sleeping on your bed. So many of these examples are given in the Shastras. You can dream in your tiny little room, 500 elephants. It fits in the dream. But when you wake up, no elephant, therefore no disappearance of elephant. You have been sleeping on your bed in a tiny room. That's how the Buddhist idea of karma. Okay, so of course, then you hear words like good karma and bad karma. So somehow, suddenly you think, oh, bad karma and good karma. If you do something good, you'll experience good. If you do something bad, you will go through experience of bad. Now see, all these things somehow ends up making you think something does solidly exist. Again, go back to the dream. Actually, it's just like in the dream. Probably this is also the one difference between the karma, the philosophy of karma and reincarnation in Buddhism and so-called Hinduism. You understand? This probably is. And another thing, by saying it is an illusion, it is not demeaning, it's not downgrading. Illusions are very powerful. I mean, the example I gave you, the movie, if a single non-existing, completely fake story on the celluloid can move you to tears and make you angry and stir you. Illusion can be very powerful. But these are the things that you just need to get used to. And by the way, so-called getting used to should be, we should be really using the word getting used to the truth instead of using the word meditation. Really, meditation is actually an art of getting used to that truth. It's really getting accustomed to that truth. Oh, I was talking about good karma and bad karma. How do Buddhists define good karma and bad karma? Well, first keep in mind, both bad and good karma and the order, everything is in the world, within the illusory world. So what makes something good? Anything that takes you closer to anicca, anattā, and duḥkha is good. Anything that takes you away. Why? Obviously, anything that takes you to the truth. Isn't that what we want? We want to know the truth. And that's how we basically value something good and bad. I think generally Indian, not just Buddhism, Indian philosophy in general, really don't like using the word good and bad. It's just not in the Indian mind. As you can see, anything that is good today for Indians, tomorrow it's all good or bad. You understand? Interchangeable. There's no like fixed good or a fixed bad. Anything that is auspicious, sometimes not auspicious. Some of you have heard this, but this is so awakening for me, actually, sort of in a relative level, of course. What do you call them? This people who bless. Hijra. I was once traveling actually to South India, and the plane was full of hijras. This, not you know. They are Yunas? Okay. And they were full, completely, and I was fascinated. I was so fascinated. I had to ask, where are you guys going? So we are invited by some family to bless their marriage ceremony. It's like so amazing. Because earlier I used to hear from our Indian friends, oh, they are like inauspicious, they are like this and that. But here we go. So generally the Indians Indians don't like to talk about good and bad, big and small, beginning and end. They hate it, and especially Buddhism. If given the chance, they prefer not talk about good and bad, small and big, end and beginning. These are very, very, I think, foreign to the Indian mind. But so you have to sort of get used to this kind of mind stream. You understand? We have to be careful here because our education system and all of that may have planted seed of the definition of good and bad in a different way. So very important not to lose that, I think. Okay, so there's that question. I hope that has answered. Okay, it's very connected here. How do you define ethics? And what is the role of ethics in leading a life of following Vipassana? I think partially I have explained, but I will quote Shantideva, one of the greatest Buddhist commentators, on the beginning of the 9th chapter of his very, very venerated and appreciated book called Bodhicharya Avatara. Right at the beginning of the 9th chapter, he said, he said, all these discipline, such as generosity, such as patience, such as ethic, morality, discipline, all this that are taught by the Buddha is just so that it can bring the prajna, the wisdom. If there is no prajna, if there is no wisdom, all this so-called generosity, ethic, discipline, morality, they will just cause you suffering. They cause self-righteousness, they cause narrow-mindedness, they cause pride. I think that's what we have been covering this morning. I remember about meditation. Yeah, actually one of the paramita, generosity, discipline, and then one of them is called one-pointedness. Like something is dhyan, zen, chan. Very loosely translated as meditation by many people. That also, without the wisdom, is blind. So many ways it is explained. It's said by the past masters, without the wisdom, acts like a generosity, morality, patience, meditation. All this is like blind people touching several blind people touching elephant and making an assumption the elephant looks like or feels like this. Each of them touching different parts of elephant, and then they coming to a conclusion: elephant is round, elephant is soft, elephant is hard, elephant is big, so on and so forth, without the wisdom. So, yes, in Buddha Dharma, Vipassana, seeing the truth, has to surpass everything. Otherwise, ethic it will only brings self-righteousness, pride, prejudice, sectarian, narrow-mindedness, all of that. Okay, then here is this is a quite interesting question. There is a duḥkha of longing for progress. Shall we still long for progress in practice, I guess, like Vipassana? A deeper understanding of Dharma. Shall we still pray for it? Because longing for deeper understanding of Dharma. It's a duḥkha, yes. Shall we long for stronger capability to control our mind? Should we have this kind of unsatisfaction? Yes. Okay. Again, all related to what I've been saying earlier. Path is not the goal. Like the great Zen master said, when somebody points at moon, you are not supposed to look at the finger, but the moon. Path, the finger, is not the end. It is just the means. When we talk about a path, we are talking about path dweller, somebody who is walking on the path. When we talk about somebody who is walking on the path, we are talking about somebody who is not perfect, meaning somebody who has defilement. So, path, the only reason why there is a path is because there is an imperfect, or somebody who has not achieved the goal yet, so to speak. And path is like if you have a thorn in your hand, you need another thorn to take this thorn. Likewise, and once you get rid of the both, the thorn, then the second thorn is not necessary. So the path has to be eliminated or abandoned. Very classic answer to this is like a boat. If you take a boat to reach the other shore, once you reach the other shore, you have to abandon. Your goal is not to sit in the boat. Your goal is to reach the other shore. So meditation has to be abandoned. Discipline has to be abandoned. Generosity has to be abandoned. All this path has to be abandoned. Not because they are bad or anything. They have served their purpose. You have now gone beyond all this. But until then, all the paraphernalia or path is necessary. So this is why longing for progress, longing for knowing the anattā, aniccā, duḥkha is absolutely important for student. Okay, and then this is very practical, I think. I mean, practice-oriented question. What to do if I get attached to the sense of freedom that comes along with the Vipassana? This is an important question, especially those who have done a little bit of Vipassana. It's very relevant. But for those who are just beginning, you should You should long for that self, that sense of freedom, or sense of liberation. Of course, it's always a bit like this. In Buddhism, we talk about bhumis. It's like a stages of like practitioners. So it's a bit like this. You have this stage, and then you have the higher stage. Thus, the trash that this guy is trying to throw and do without is the blessing of this. You understand what I'm saying? This stage guy is longing for the very thing that this second guy is trying to get rid of. And then related to the earlier question, so you go on and on and on, and according to Mahayana Buddhism, there's supposedly 10th stage, and on the 10th, you basically shrug off everything. Okay. But since this is kind of a practice-oriented question, I should try to give you some, something not just philosophical. When you do not just Vipassana, even Shamatha, there are many challenges. The biggest challenge is actually sense of victory. When you manage to, I managed to be not distracted. I managed to actually see, I can, a little glimpse of anicca, little glimpse of anattā. That victory, sense of victory, sense of achievement, becomes an obstacle. And this is a really difficult one, actually. What should you do? The masters of the past have prescribed a lot of things. Okay. One is let's go right to the top. The most important one. Again, for those who are not so familiar with the Vipassana, it may not make sense, but for those who have done a little bit of Vipassana, as long as you have a reference, this is it, you should never trust that. As long as you have a reference, this is it. This is anattā. Obviously it is not. Because there is reference. So, okay, so now let's go a little bit down. As long as the distractions are bothering you, then you have not reached, because you still have something to lose. Well, supposedly, you should reach to a stage, and this is possible by keep on doing, especially the anattā. It's a bit like this, okay? Let's say, without your knowledge, thieves have been stealing from your house almost every day, every night, but you never know. So because you don't know, it's almost equal to nothing has happened, nothing got lost, you understand? Because you don't know. Now, today, you actually found out that thieves have been visiting your house twice, let's say. And you got so crazy. They didn't only come for once, but they came twice. It's become such a big deal, just because you have noticed. That's the kind of this, I don't know, you can call it a sense of victory that you have managed to catch twice. But this also makes you worry, and then you go panic. Now you keep on practicing, you reach to a stage where you manage to have nothing in your house. Nothing. You don't keep anything in the house, but you also don't tell the thief. You just sit in the corner and watch the thief come in. They come, you have nothing to lose. You can be totally confident. Until then, sense of freedom that comes with a Vipassana can be helpful, can be useful, but we have to be careful because you still have something to lose. So, yes, another great example, I think, the Buddhists. Well, there's a fruit. They're talking about a fruit. The onion will do. It's like onion. You peel one skin and you think, this is it. This is the fruit. But then after a while, you keep on practicing and then you realize that's just a skin. So you peel off that skin and then you keep on peeling off the skin until you find no fruit inside. Then that's it. That's the job is finished. And that, again, leads us to the concept of anattā. How do we reconcile self-care and no self? Okay, I will talk about this based with because as part of our subject, the way of the Vipassana, I think you also need to know Mahakaruna. I don't like to use the word compassion. Compassion is really not doing the justice to the word. Because compassion involves a lot of hierarchy. It does seem to, I don't know, it's very limiting, limited, and it's the word compassion is stark opposite to the anattā. So let's use the karuna, mahakaruna, karuna, metta, because it's related to self-care and no self. Okay. First, just very briefly, when you have a good understanding on anicca, there is karuna. Because the reason why you don't have karuna or the compassion, that's how, is lack of awareness of the fact that things are changing all the time. See? Can you now see the word compassion doesn't do, because the word compassion always seems to talk about somebody's in pain, in a lower, sort of more unfortunate situation, and then you, as someone who exercising this sort of sympathy. But actually, if you see the anicca and duḥkha, and of course, selflessness, what it does is it liberates you from the delusion of thinking things as real, things as permanent, and things as pleasurable and good and permanent and satisfying. So when you have a total awareness of these three, that actually is the real sort of karuna, empathy, understanding, and especially equanimity. Because you have arrived at the level of non-duality. Okay, let me explain this a little bit different angle. So, you are looking at somebody and you think that somebody is in trouble, in pain. And that assumption is your assumption, which you have collected from books and training. I don't know. Let's say if you're a psychiatrist, definitely. Let's say you're a doctor, definitely. Because you have learned terms, symptoms, symbols, signs. So then you use your own mind and come to a conclusion that so-and-so person is not healthy, not normal, needs help. No understanding of the three marks. Then you apply your so-called caring. And because you are trapped by your assumption, because you are blinded by your assumptions and expectations and your definition of what is normal, what is unhealthy and healthy and fixing and getting better, so on and so forth, you put yourself into this sort of a higher position and looking down at the patient, let's say, as in a lower situation, so to speak. So there's always this hierarchy. And then not only that, you apply your method, and at times it works, other times it doesn't work. And especially when both ways. When it works, your assumptions get more become more solid, and your conviction towards your assumption and imagination and expectation becomes bigger. When it doesn't work, and when things doesn't work, and when things keep on not working, you end up becoming the victim of your own care. And that's when you become sort of codependent to your own so-called care and compassion and concern, which exists with us all the time. I mean, family, friends, as you have, I'm sure you know this, most of the time we are trying to take care of somebody whose problem is something that you have assumed. And in the process, a lot of misunderstanding, and of course the other person is doing this to you also. So lots of sort of miscommunication. And then, okay, self-care and no self. The total understanding and the realization of the anattā is the real care, basically. Okay. Here is a question regarding the yoga asana. I'm really not qualified to answer any of this. But one thing what I can tell you is something quite interesting. The word yoga is translated by Tibetan as a namjur, which is probably something, especially you Indians should take note on this. Nal and jor, there's a two words for this, and it's quite, it will be interesting for you. Jor actually means wealth. It's a property, like a wealth. It's like money, jorra, wealth, investment. I don't know, jor. Nal, that's an interesting word. It means normal or yes, mundane, normal. So together, what it means is wealth of being normal. That's how the yoga is translated. Just want to share this to you because you are now, the yoga, the whole phenomena of yoga is now transforming. But this is one way, this is how the Tibetans, we are talking about 6th century Tibetan translators, 7th century translators. This is how they decided to translate the word yoga. Similarly, the word asana, yoga asana now, right? This is, again, something for you guys to make note, especially Indians. Asana, duḥkha. That's how it's translated in Tibetan. It's like how to be. the word is translated as how to be, how to not just sit, stand, how to be. So together with a yoga asana, it's like technique of how to be with a wealth of being normal. That is how we approach. I think language really makes a big difference. Supposedly, now if you ask further question, they say that, of course, the word normal is a little difficult to translate. Okay, maybe this will help you. The word dhyan, samadhi, dhyan, again is translated as nyam, ja, duḥkha. This is a lot of, a connection there. Ja, the word, Tibetan word ja, actually has the connotation of leave it alone. Just leave it as it is. That's an important one, as it is. Keep it as it is. Don't mingle, don't poke, don't fabricate, don't touch. Just leave it as it is. Because the moment you don't live, then being normal changes. And the moment you lose that normal stance or the position, you become sick. You become abnormal. You have lost your, wealth. You will then obtain, or you will acquire poverty mentality. The opposite of the wealth. You will become destitute. You will want to, you will think something is lacking, something is missing. And then you have that anxiety and so on and so forth. I just want to tell you this, but other than that, this particular question is regarding asana. So, would you recommend that Ngondro practitioners occasionally watch a movie or go hiking instead of practicing? Well, I would recommend, if your Ngondro practice is not bringing you to anicca, anattā, and duḥkha, don't do Ngondro. That's what I would say. Hiking and movie watching is just an option out of many, many other options. But the point here, the way of the Vipassana, what I wanted to share this with you is, the whole point of the Vipassana is to see this three as it is. That's what we talk about, wealth yoga. Oh. Who is asking this question? Okay. This one, we have no time. Anyway, it is about difference between rangtong and shentong. We can't be talking this under this tree. It's too beautiful, and let's just enjoy this. This is coming from you? Okay. You are French, right? Sort of. It's a bit like this, I will tell you. It's a bit like, the only time the French become patriotic is when we talk about the British. It's a bit like this. Other than that, they are totally not patriotic. Does that help you? Okay. I think that's it, right? Okay, there's one more, and then let this be the last one. How does it feel to have no reference points? How does one become when there is no reference? Oh, okay, that's an important question, I guess. This question has been asked by many students to many, many great masters. And there are amazing answers. And the most simple one, actually, this was asked also to my own teacher by another student, and we were all there. And I think this is what you need to hear. Nothing happens, and this is the whole point. No halo, no third eye, no extra omniscience, if that's what you are expecting, nothing. And that's what you should be striving for, because I think the culprit is the word enlightenment. Because the word enlightenment, have this something extra special happens, like a light and it's a release. It's a bit like a baby who has been watching a play with a demonic mask and somehow managed to go backstage and then realize it's just a mask. Nothing happens to the baby, nothing special. Just release from the delusion that it's a demon. That's it. That's quite a lot, actually. Okay.